To be their best selves, both professionally and personally. Women need time in a welcoming and safe space. Our guest spent years as a senior executive at Fortune 100 companies, and she understands how important women-centric spaces are for professional and personal growth. That's why she launched a global online platform designed to transform the lives of all professional women through shared experiences, peer connections, and highly curated, personalized content. You will love meeting and learning from this fab female founder. Stay tuned for the Startup Life Live show. Let's glow, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Startup Life Live show. I'm your host, Ande, Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And after raising 4 businesses of my own, I have a really clear idea of what you brave, tenacious, phenomenal founders are going through every single day. And I know sometimes there's heartache involved in this founder journey, right? But you still get up every day because you are driven by your purpose, by your North Star. And I am just cheering wildly for you in awe and wonder. If you are watching from wherever, please know that I am grateful that you carved out time to tune in, whether you're listening on the podcast or watching the video with us live or via replay. The fact that you carved out time to up your founder game is a wonderful thing, because as you do better, that's right, your business does better. And as founders, there's no training for this, right? Once you sit in that seat, it's like nothing you've ever been. I don't care if you've got all the experience in the world like our guest today. Still, when you sit in that seat, it's like, whoa, and sometimes it's ruh-roh. So I'm grateful you tuned in. And if you're watching on video, please be sure to click the thumbs up or the like button wherever you are. And if you are watching from YouTube and you haven't done so already, please click on that subscribe button. It really helps me reach more founders. So thank you for that. And if you want to get a deep dive about who's on the show next, please join the Startup Life Live meetup group. That way you'll get the bio of the guest and their company and get all the scoop. And it could be an ideal show just for you to help you take your business to the next level, because you really aren't alone. It's so easy to feel isolated, right, as a founder, and feel like you're in a silo. When you tune into the Startup Life Live show, you're hearing other founders' journeys, and you're like, oh my God, you mean I'm not the only one going through that? That's right, you are not the only one. For those of you who are in the US, and if you're a female-owned business and you want to get certified as a female-owned business, excuse me, please consider the WeBank certificate. And that's for if you're doing B2B business, right? And so this certificate is the gold standard for getting certified. And I have helped dozens of women-led and owned businesses get through this incredible application process. It's not easy, but there are government contracts and corporate contracts that want to hire women-owned businesses. Okay, you don't want to leave money on the table. So if you need help, reach out to me with the WeBank and I will help you. Email, you can't see it in there, but it's Ande at andelyons.com. And links are in the show notes, folks. All right. So I'm excited to introduce our guest to you today. Let me pull up the artwork before I get going, and you can see her wonderful self right there. And it is Shubhi Rao, and she's the founder and CEO of UpLevel, a global online platform designed to transform the lives of all professional women through shared experiences, peer connections, and highly curated, personalized content. Now, a software engineer, finance and corporate executive, board member, global citizen, community leader, daughter, wife, and mother, I'm telling you, Shubhi is uniquely qualified to help women around the world to level up their skill sets and mindsets in a safe, female-centric online platform. Shubhi has served as a senior executive with Alphabet/Google, Tesco, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Ford Motor Company, among others. And she also sits on the board of directors for organizations as the Open Lending LLC, Center for Global Development, and International Center for Research on Women. Oh my gosh. Let's welcome her to the show. Hey, Shubhi, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Happy you are here.
Thank you.
Your background is just so extraordinary. And really, you talk about smashing some glass ceilings along the way. I mean, you have been a trailblazer for women in tech, women in Fortune 100 companies everywhere. And I'm just so honored and thrilled you're here to share your founder journey stories because, as I mentioned at the beginning, there's no training for this, right, Shubhi? I mean, you come with an abundance of high senior level executive experience. And we're going to find out what it was like when you sat in the seat as a founder, right?
Yes.
It's so not easy. So where are you hanging from today, Shubhi?
So I'm in Austin, Texas.
Excellent.
Very beautiful part of the world. It's an amazing place. Moved here 5 years ago, and now it's home. So love it.
Oh my gosh! And where did you move from?
Originally from Michigan. Lived in London for 10 years, then California, like many Californians that have been transplanted to Austin, I'm one of those.
I have seen that. The landscape is shifting. A lot of New York City folks moved to Austin during COVID as well. And so it's become a real hub for startup life, okay, and for founders everywhere. So I think you're surrounded with a lot of great resources and people who can help you move forward. Now, I want to know why a woman of your incredible background and breadth of experience and hard-earned won career at Fortune 100 companies felt compelled to leave the perks, the benefits, the prestige of your positions to become an entrepreneur. Is this something you'd always wanted to become? Were you that person in third grade hustling products? Do you have role models in your life? Like what happened, Shubhi, that you felt, oh, I've got to solve a problem and I'm the one to do it?
You nailed it. I think whether it's come in the form of being an employee or in the form of being a mom or in the form of being a community, participant, or whether it's now being an entrepreneur. To me, it's about solving problems. So if that takes the form of, okay, I'm going to be an employee and it's going to help me to solve this problem, or I'm going to be a board member and I'm going to be able to help solve this problem, or in this case, it happens to be, well, okay, I have to be an entrepreneur to solve this problem, then that's what it is. I don't think I started the journey at all to say, I want to be an entrepreneur first, and then I'm going to solve this problem. I started with, there is this problem. And honestly, if somebody was solving it, I would have said, oh, well, let me figure out how I can go work for this company.
Or add wind to their sails, right?
Right. And I would have been part of solving it in some shape or form. So to me, the drive was really the problem. And it wasn't something that I discovered towards the latter part of my life. It started very early on when, I started my life as a software engineer, and I graduated in 1990. So, those 5 years of working for some incredible companies as a software engineer in Detroit, I think really shaped in many ways my career and where I am today, because it was tough being the sole woman engineer. And although, I got promoted and I had more responsibilities, I just didn't have a seat at the table. And, I could write a whole book on that whole chapter of my life.
I can only
imagine. It made me decide that this is not what I want to do. I don't want to pursue a pure software engineering career, because emotionally and just mentally, it was tough.
Yeah. So how did you segue into the more, C-suite type of roles, executive level, where you had more responsibility and team leading?
Yeah, this problem solving for me has always been, and this is come through numbers. So, my mom says even as a child, I loved my numbers. And so that's been a big part of me. And even today, even what we do with UpLevel is, and I'll talk about how numbers is such a big, it's always been my best friend. And so when I decided that I didn't want to pursue this career in just software engineering anymore, um, but what I loved about, again, was the numbers. And so that's how I pivoted into finance, which is numbers.
Yeah. And I love this. And you hit the nail on the head when you said that you love to solve problems. After this is what, my 234th interview just for the Startup Life live show. I can tell you the number one ingredient in every founder. And when I co-hosted the monthly pitch event, same thing. Founders are problem solvers. That is the one unique common thread throughout all of you, is that you are compelled to solve a problem. In fact, you're almost like Sherlock Holmes in that regard. It's like you've got to dive deep and go, all right, that's unacceptable. I have to fix that. I have to solve that problem. And it doesn't matter, folks, engineers to cooks to everybody in between. That is what I consistently see. And folks, in fact, I'm going to do a stitch that on a pillow moment, because yes, Shubhi, you love numbers and they are your friend. But I got to tell you, in the startup life world, founders, I don't care even if you used to hate numbers, you have to say that to yourself at all times. I love numbers. They are my friend. And so I'm going to stitch that on a pillow. Because you can always hire someone to crunch the numbers and give you the bottom line, but you have to love numbers. They are your friend. But that, in fact, is true for you, Shubhi, which I just love. And so you moved up the ladder, so to speak, and you had some great roles at some of the top firms, PricewaterhouseCoopers, to Alphabet/Google. And then you were seeing what with women, because we could go on forever, and we'll touch on this lightly, folks, about trying to grow professionally as a woman, and especially if you're coming with a strong background in numbers, which tends to be very male-centric environments, or software engineer, and coding, et cetera, which tends to be very male-centric. What was that moment, that light bulb moment, when you said, women need a place to go where there's no worrying about semantics, there's no having to hear a guy talk. We need to go someplace that is for us?
It's interesting because I think for me, being a woman, and especially being a woman of color, and in the organizations I worked in, and then being more on the finance and number side, which, by the way, has two sides to that coin. It worked in my favor in a huge way, because that analytical strength that I have and the numbers that I have, the skill set I have around that, actually helped me from a career perspective, right? Because I was able to go into any room and really understand the complexity of the issue, and then be able to bring it down to its lowest common denominator and be able to solve it. And so that really helped me to grow, because I got such incredible opportunities, because the organizations needed that very skill set, and I had it. And that was sort of my superpower that allowed me to continue to grow. But on the other side, there were, all these other, support that I needed. And when I looked above, or even I looked at, across, I didn't find very many role models or peers or mentors to be able to help me. So I had to, a lot of the burden actually fell on me.
Yeah.
And then the worst phase when I look back was just that phase of, that early stage of getting your first home, and the mortgages, and then the kids and the family and the caring responsibilities. And at the same time, all the work, right? You're right in the middle of the organization. You're trying to grow in that organization. You have to travel. So much of it comes at you. I call it like that peak complexity that you face. And so when I got more senior, I had a different perspective now, where I was now looking at the other women in the organization. And you know what, Andy? Nothing changed. They were still struggling with the same issues. And at the same time, though, the kind of benefits we were getting, the kind of support we're getting had changed. It had changed from the time I was in those shoes. But yet the numbers didn't speak for themselves. Even today, we know 50% of the women, according to this Gartner study that came out last year, really want to leave the workforce.
Yeah.
Right? They might be sitting in their desks, but realistically, they really don't feel supported.
They don't feel supported. They don't feel heard. They don't feel seen. And with all due respect to the wonderful men out there, and we have plenty of them, it's still a bias that has not been dissolved. And the same challenges, especially with inappropriate conversations, folks. And this is what I would love to have, Shubhi, is I'd love to have a playbook so that when women are caught in those moments, right? And it's usually just one bad apple. It's usually one dodo head guy, but the men in the room don't know how to deal with it. And the women certainly don't know how to deal with it. And the studies show that every time a woman opens her mouth, unless she's running the organization, her career is hampered if she has said, listen, eyes up, please. Comments like, hey guys, I don't know what color are our eyes because I haven't made it up that far. Those comments, everyone, are still happening in the workplace. So professional development is, yes, we want to be supported and we want to know what we need to do to get up to the next level, to be really feeling fulfilled in the organization. But we also don't need the exhaustion of conversations that are inappropriate because these gentlemen, especially in tech or male-centric environments like finance and law, that they're stuck in some old paradigm that continues to bear fruit year after year. So this is when I heard about UpLevel, I was so excited that you had created this platform not only for women to go in and get the professional development and the personal development that they needed, but also perhaps to have some conversations on quietly, with women from other organizations and spaces, like, what do I do in this circumstance? So if you could talk a little bit about that as well, because it's not just upping your skill sets and mindset, it's also making it safe to be a professional woman.
Yeah, what I found really, and I still continue to find fascinating, because I came out, as you said, out of a predominantly male dominated world, just because I was in tech, and then men, and then automotive, and men, and financial services, etc. But when you look at, even so, if there's 40 million women in America, right? So there's 140 million women that are professionals, educated professionals around the world. If you look at the US, is 40 million. Of those 40 million, 75% of the women are predominantly in healthcare, service, hospitality, education, and retail. So you would think, okay, these are highly women dominated fields. Yet when you
Right.
look at the leadership is the opposite. The leadership is 60, 70, 80% men, and maybe 20, 25% women, if even that. Right. And so this is when I talk about like solving this problem. When I just lived in my own little bubble, I thought, well, yes, it is because I'm in this women, I'm in a male dominated field. It's all about these other issues. But even in a women dominated fields, it's very, very strange. And so that is the problem that I still, is what keeps me up at night, is what I want to solve, is what is it? What is it? And I think it is, this is our hypothesis, is that no woman is, no two women are alike. Women are not a monolithic group, which means that women need a highly personalized resource. Not that men don't need it, but but I think we need to think about a lot of these digital benefits that are provided at work. Are majority of those benefits built and designed by men? So where is the lens of the woman? And then when we realize that some of those benefits don't work, what do? We create all these ERGs, and we create all these networks. And, to a certain extent, those are helpful. But the package for the woman is these digital benefits plus a women's networking group or some ERG group. Combine that together, and that is how we're going to help you to create that connective tissue, or to help you to get some resources. but that doesn't scale and has its inefficiencies.
Yeah. And if it's within the organization, there's no safety. Sorry, folks.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
you're not
right.
going to reveal things that are going on.
Exactly. And so women, though women quit or women kind of just plateau out, and we're not seeing that leadership pipeline that even, like I said, even in women dominated fields doesn't exist.
Right. And
That's
folks,
the problem.
there is one company that it does exist. They're only a penny off on equal pay versus 84 cents for the dollar. And they have women on the board, significant women in EVP positions, et cetera. And that's JP Morgan Chase. Why? Because the women took them to court. So, that's the inside story on that, but it worked. Okay. Whatever it takes to make it happen. And it's lovely to see. I love this comment, Cindy. How are you? So good to see you. She says it's not about giving women a seat at the table. It's about designing a table with a chair
Yes,
that is ergonomically made for women's unique
correct.
biological.
And that's the chair I talk about when we think about all these benefits and all these things that we do. We're not creating that chair for her.
Oh my gosh, Cindy, you're the best for throwing that in there. Thank you. Thank you. And be sure to
Thank
pop
you,
in.
Cindy. I'm going to use that for UpLevel, if I may.
And also, Cindy, be sure to share your URL for your wonderful business, okay? So we can celebrate you. Yes, this is what needs to happen. And that's what's so exciting about UpLevel. I use the word safe place, but I went to an all women's MBA program. So I know the difference of what it's like when you're with your gender and only your gender in the room. And folks, I love men. I'm married to a phenomenal man. I raised two phenomenal men. That's not the point.
That's not the point.
Women need to have their own safe, Virginia Woolf, a room of their own, a space of their own, a place of their own, where everything is geared toward the professional woman, because you talked about the pipeline. Now, some women, it's a pipeline to a certain level that's going to make them feel fulfilled and wonderful, or some women want to go all the way to the ceiling and get into the C-suite. How do you do that? How do you navigate it? And how do you bring the right questions to your organization? And where are you going to have those conversations with other women? At a conference, at a networking event? That's not a safe space yet either. I mean, it's wonderful, it's lovely, and you can have nurturing environments there for sure, but it still isn't at the place that UpLevel is at. So let's talk about your thesis. When you pulled everything together, and you're a first-time founder, so you had to do all of the parts and pieces, right? To take something from this idea, this problem you wanted to solve for other professional women, no matter where they were seated, whether it was in male-centric or female-centric environments, you had to take that ideation into implementation, which you're very familiar with, given your background in tech, in finance. But take us through that first stage of your ideation to MVP. Why did you choose the name UpLevel, which I just love and I can't get over it was available? And how did you create your MVP? Please share.
So we are, as a tech company, at its very heart, we are rooted in data. Data is very important. And again, it goes back to in the end, you have to leverage what you as a founder have on day one, right? Which is, what are my strengths? What is the problem? What's that Venn diagram where those two come together? And so when I looked at and as I think about this problem, I want to figure out how gender, data, and tech intersect in a really smart way, because it's the only way this thing scales. This is the only way this thing can work globally.
Yep.
And so we started with data. And actually, my very, very first attempt at collecting data was doing an event and inviting about 20, 25 women with just, and I'm not a big fan of surveys, but nevertheless, we created the best survey we could with some of the smart women around me. And we started to collect the data. And so each time we did it, we refined it. Once we started to do that, we started to build various hypotheses, and we actually built our MVP in Bubble. Bubble is a no code.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and so we at this point built a small audience to see how what the feedback would be on the product. That allowed us then to go and actually, at this point, up until then, I had been funding it. And at this point, I was like, okay, if this thing really has legs, we're going to go figure out if we can get funding from people that really care and will be part of the mission and will really help us. So set a pretty high bar for not just the funding amount, but also the kind of investors we wanted to bring in, which is thankfully that all worked out.
Well, let me just ask a quick question here on that MVP, because you were about the data 100%, which I love, but you could have sat with your beta group, your focus group, and gotten some data that just said, oh boy, I better not do this. This is like, they don't care. How did the data give you the information? Like, what were the kind of questions that you asked?
That's a great question. Sometimes, and I used to always say this, I mean, I shouldn't say for all founders, but when you're a founder, you have so many incredible ideas in your brain, and you feel like you can solve world hunger, right? And so, the beginning, I wanted to dump everything into UpLevel and get it to solve like every issue for every woman, and we could do this, and we could do that, and thankfully, I had a really great team that kind of tempered me and helps me, right? But that's great.
You got the reins out.
Yes, exactly. Like, come back here. But we always said, and even till today, we'd say that data shall guide us, And so we said, well, if we could only have 6 screens, like that's it, food, water, shelter, what would we put in there? What would be the most important? What's the promise we're making? And I think there are 2 promises. Well, 1 promise, but the 2 elements to the promise. One is, dear woman, we understand that your life is not just professional, it's not just financial, and it's not just personal. They're highly interwoven. And so we got to provide you a broad offering, but we recognize, again, we honor the fact that, we are not a monolithic group. You are a unique entity. And so you need, within the broad offering, being able to look at an omni-channel sort of consumption. But at the same time, it has to be highly personalized. We're not going to have you like go into some massive library or, a bunch of women or a bunch of coaches or experts and put the burden on you to, sort this out.
Right.
We're personalized. We're going to give it to you at your fingertips. And so that's sort of what has been a North Star. Do we get it right? No. I think every day, I think UpLevel has been my biggest teacher. I've had some amazing teachers along the way, but nobody has been a better teacher than her for me, because she teaches me every day. And the data is what's really important. So with the MVP, we learned a lot in terms of what resonates, what doesn't resonate. But the MVP is the MVP. One thing perhaps I should share is that when we went from the MVP to our first alpha, actually, before even the beta, how do you build a product like UpLevel and not have gender data? I was naive. I thought, well, I could just go find gender data. I'll be able to buy it and we can train our algorithm and train our AI and everything. No. So I was number 1, and I seeded 200 of my friends, diverse friends from different backgrounds, different countries,
and different needs.
So I was very deliberate in how I picked those 200 first, and then seeded the platform, and then we've just allowed the word of mouth to spread. Because if I had just gone, let's say, into corporate and just gotten those women, I think there would be more biases, and it wouldn't be as rich as a data set that we have today. Now, through word of mouth, has gone to like 36 plus countries, which is great because we're collecting really different, interesting to train the algorithm, because otherwise that poor algorithm was, we have it, but no data to train it, other than the limited data we had, from our MVP. But that wasn't enough to take something that significant and train it.
That is fascinating. And Cindy, you are just really dropping the gems and adding value to the conversation today. Cindy says, data bias is a major issue in redefining, quote, universal, like having a male doctor dictating direction on women's health without research data for and about women, right? I mean, we all know that, right? Women's heart attacks happen at a microvascular level, and the cardio tech is not made to capture heart issues at this level, nor doctors trained to look for this. And we know for years Thank you so much, Cindy, for that. It's absolutely true. And we know for years that we would have, same thing with breast cancer. They did all these studies on men for breast cancer for women. It was just nuts. So I love that you went, I can't buy that data. So I have to start feeding the data that we need in order to deliver on our promise, which is the unique personalized content that woman desires for her growth, both professional and
It could be
personal.
content, or she could say, I need more personalized coaches or mentors, or, it's going to deliver everything she needs. It could come in the form of any one of those resources.
Well, and you're very talented and come with so much experience, deep and wide experience in your background. But did you also onboard advisors and other, team members to help you as you began this journey?
So from the very get-go, for almost 2 years now, I've had what I call a founder circle. And that founder circle represents what I talked about earlier in terms of those sectors where women are highly, dominant in terms of the workforce. And so we have doctors, we have corporate leaders, we have women from we even have women entrepreneurs, a couple of women entrepreneurs. We have women from academia, right?
Mhm.
And so these women come from different backgrounds. They're racially, from a background perspective, orientation perspective, very diverse. And we meet every Monday, once a week. And it's interesting because these women are so busy, and yet they give me an hour of their life, but they all look forward to it, and they all show up like clockwork, and they all say they love it because they feel like there's a purpose for that hour that they're helping to solve. So every time a new release on UpLevel comes, they're like, yeah, I made that suggestion and I get to see it, right? So, or they get to see the preview of what's happening. So that's what we've done. And now, because of where UpLevel is in its next stage, we just established our enterprise advisory board council, and these are truly women that are now within the specific enterprises, and it's a small group of 6 women, but they're more, let's say, experienced in their sector and can look and sit at that intersection of where they work, but also on tech and data.
Yeah. And this is what I love about your leadership, Shubhi, is that you were able to bring these women in as volunteers, as support, as adding wind, as advisors, knowing that it was going to not only up-level their situation, but also provide a great sense of satisfaction. Folks, others love to help. They really do. And Shubhi, you're solving such an important problem, but it's a big, hairy, audacious problem that you're solving. Mm-hmm. And it's so important that you were able to get this support, and now at the enterprise level. And so this is an advisory group that is key to the success of UpLevel. Yeah. And it really speaks, and I just want other founders to understand they can do the same thing. That you can look to peers or to your product market fit, who's going to be in the market that you want to appeal to. You can get those folks to be those key advisors and honor them in such a way, but also delight them, right? Because you get to say, hey, I implemented your idea, and they'll be like, oh my gosh.
And what's interesting is that this founder circle have become so close to each other, right? So offline, with they connect with each other when they visit now. Let's say they go to New York, or somebody goes to California, etc. They'll meet each other, and we do it at 6:00 our time. So women are really, well, we have one who's super healthy. She's always eating something really healthy, but the rest of us have a glass of wine or something, that way. So it's really low key. It's nice to just see friends. Now we've become really good friends. And I think women we all do, I think, like helping where there's a purpose and it meets your passion.
Yeah, and that collaboration is so important.
Collaboration is so key.
Yeah, and it soothes our lizard brains because women tended to be in the field, right, in the meadow, talking, back in the day, thousands of years ago, what was working, what wasn't, what would poison you, what wouldn't, and what was edible. This is the same thing, working together toward a greater good and a greater purpose. I want to do a little shout out because Cindy's been really dropping some gems and adding to the conversation. She is the founder of the Linking Ventures Valuations platform. And this is a phenomenal platform. Founders, you've got to check it out. It tracks bootstrappings, ups and downs with a living, breathing, dynamic valuation that attaches to clear, unbiased data points. So be sure to visit linkingventures.com platform and community. And Cindy would love to connect with you all. And she's on LinkedIn at CLGUYON. Cindy, is it Cindy Guyon? I've never tried to pronounce your last name properly, Cindy, and I apologize. But folks, you can just tune into the show at 35 minutes. You'll see it right here up on the screen. Cindy, thank you so much for sharing that information. It's a very important part for founders, which is proper valuation, because you're going to be negotiating a term sheet and you want to be able to present your cap table and valuation in the best possible light. So now you got the platform, you're building it, you're growing it, you're creating, the apps. Oh, it's Guyon. Thank you, Cindy. Guyon, of course. Perfect. And now your value prop is out there and you're proving it and you've got your product market fit. You shared that you had different folks on your advisory team, but did you go after a specific customer segment among professional women when you first started UpLevel?
Yeah. So we are running a pilot with healthcare. Great. We're running a pilot on retail banking because retail banking is roughly 65% of the workforce is women.
Yeah.
We are also running a pilot with a mid-sized tech company, and then there are other pilots across the sectors that are, I think, important to us that may not be ones that we would. So they're on the other end of the spectrum,
sure.
Like construction,
yeah,
or metals and mining, where there's not a lot of women, but they have a significant pain point in how do I attract and retain and engage our women.
Oh yes, they do.
so it's really trying to, as a founder, you only have so much time and so much dollars, so to be really strategic on your go to market. And so we've been really thoughtful about looking at that barbell and saying, okay, well, here is truly a population, sectors that have a huge population of women. And then there's the other end of the barbell where, there's just like when you think of metals, mining, construction. And I, would love to see more women in there, but they are not, and they really struggle on how to maintain their women. To retain their women.
Yeah, it's very true. I have a good friend who, several friends who are in construction. So we know how hard that is. And yet they're so capable in the construction field, big time.
Right. That's right.
So now, and how do you reach them? Because we all have to focus on our distribution channel, right, founders? That's part of our business map. It's, we identify our customers and we know what our product market fit looks like. And now it's like, how do we reach them? What channel are you using to find folks for your wonderful UpLevel platform?
So look, I'm an older founder, so I do have a network and I'm able to leverage that network. But also when, I said I was really thoughtful about how, which investors we want to engage with and today I tell you the market is very different than it was when we did the raise. But one of our investors is really strong at helping to open not all doors, but important doors or make connections within the enterprise. So truly, it's been leaning either on myself and my network or leaning on our investors to be able to help to get those introductions.
Yeah. And that's so key, everybody. And sometimes you just don't have the social capital that you'd like to have. And that's why onboarding high caliber advisors is so important, because if you can't lean into it, like Shubhi has built hers up over the decades, so she's got a nice rich group of folks to turn to and who know people who know people. But if you don't, that's where you can really lean on your advisors or investors that you've carefully brought on for your business. And speaking of that, how did that process go for you? Because again, this was an idea that you had, right? And idea to implementation, women don't always get investors when they're figuring it out on the back of a napkin, so to speak, or with their minimum viable product. They tend to get the old, well, let me see how you do once you get traction, or let me see how you do once you've got, both the iOS and the Android app done. A lot of push off. White men don't get this, folks, not as often. That's for darn sure. What was that journey like for you, Shubhi? How did you find folks to, come on board financially and believe in your dream and vision?
So, I think it's the first one is the hardest.
Yes.
And so, and along the way, and like I said, this was early 21, the markets were great. And I met a few investors that loved the idea and wanted to invest. But to Cindy's, this is why I think Cindy's company is really helpful. In my case, being a woman from finance and being able to do my valuations, etc., that was really, even then, I still wanted to get a second pair of eyes or a second opinion, if you
Right.
will. So I think that's really important to know in the beginning, because, and this is, I'm not saying that, oh, I'm the expert, but I know something about this, having done
Oh,
it for
yeah.
20.
You know what present value, future value, and
That's
everything
right.
in
And I know
between
how to do
is.
valuations every which way to Sunday, right? Different methodologies, etc. And yet I had investors who wanted to, say, well, I'll give you X $100,000 and I want X% of the company. And I'm thinking, in what universe does this work, right? It makes no sense to me. Help me understand. Right? So to that trust is really, really important. And to me, that was, having an investor is all like getting married. Like you need to make sure not only do you want their money and their expertise, but that trust that when your back is to the wall, they're going to be there for you. They really are going to believe in you no matter what. And I think finding, to me, that was really important. And actually, a male ally introduced me to that anchor, if you will. And once I got to really know her, she so believed in what we're doing that she joined me on many of the calls to say, I'm investing in this, so should you. So she's providing
Excellent.
her social capital made a massive difference. But that was because I think, we refused to compromise. That little small team that I had, we refused to compromise on, who could be part of our investor group. And we
That,
wanted somebody who believed in our mission, who was going to be able to help us with their experience and expertise. But more importantly, we're going to really, really, really support us.
and folks, I know you're hungry for the capital, that your baby needs oxygen and food, but you cannot compromise, because I have seen too many businesses go down because of who's on their cap table, because they compromised, because they were so desperate for the funding and that investor took them down. And that's what can happen. Folks have to believe in what you're doing. As you were talking about the process, I talk about the funding process all the time, but now I have this sort of vision of a show like The Bachelorette, only it's an investor trying to find out who they're, it's a founder trying to find which investors are going to be right for them in their business.
That's right. That's right. And that trust is the most important element.
It is so important. So yes, it's like dating, and you will get ghosted, and you will not have, good experiences, and you'll be left feeling a lot of times inadequate, et cetera. But it's so important. And, as far as, where you decide, the revenue model for a platform like this, what does that look like so that you can become profitable and sustainable?
So having been on the corporate side for so long, and how corporates really think about human capital, the pressure, honestly, on corporates to optimize every dollar. Because we are a capitalist society, and we are, we got to deliver our numbers, right? Every business has to deliver its numbers. So how do we make smart investments in human capital? And that's the lens I have always thought about, of putting myself on the other side. Well, okay, why would I buy UpLevel? Like, why would I invest? How would I think about this? How would I take this to my boss, right? And so it has to be very clear ROI. And this is one of the reasons I wanted this to be a technology, data, gender platform, because it allows you to scale. And yes, there is significant investment upfront to build this platform. But of course, it's, you don't build the massive platform day one. I still think we're pretty big, but relative to, let's say, the bigger platforms, we're relatively a baby. But there isn't anywhere where you can just say, well, let's spend a few $100,000 and I'll go see if I can win a B2B. That's just not going to happen. It needs to be at least at a certain level where you have earned the right to at least go have a conversation with a B2B.
Yeah.
And so that needs some initial heavy investment upfront, relatively speaking. It can be done on a few $100,000. It needs something a little bit more than that. But no, recognizing that, I wanted to really democratize this cost so that the cost does not become a barrier to companies wanting to provide this to their women. It almost has to be a no-brainer, because when you look at attrition costs, they can, depending on the level, it can be, be anywhere from $30,000 to $150,000.
Exactly, Shubhi. And we know that you cannot throw more money to keep somebody on board. They'll take maybe at the most a 23% increase in salary before they're out the door, because you are not providing them with the ingredients they need for their soul, for their growth.
Right.
And so having a benefit like this for XYZ large corporate company to be able to say to their female employees, look, along with your comp package, right, we have this included. Is that where you go to for your business model?
It's right. This is a platform. And, when you look at your portal, you not only do, so, what we tell the corporates is, your women are so diverse, but their needs are so broad. And that's exactly where UpLevel comes in. Broad offering, highly personalized, whereby we take away from you. You don't have to worry about, well, how do I create all these different kinds of content to support her professionally, personally, financially? I mean, there are things you need to do, obviously, for your compliance or your specific leadership training. Of course, you should do that. But there are other big elements that women need that are common denominators across that, you don't have to worry about. One of the bigger issues for corporates is, oh, if I'm going to do all these virtual events, I got to source the right expert. I got to set it all up. I got to get all the invitation. But if you have a built-in platform, you don't need to worry about it, especially if you have a company that can, go, oh, you want a speaker. Like we know we have all the experts on the platform of different backgrounds from different parts of the world that we can deliver within, a very, very short period of time. Same for women of, again, different backgrounds, who can be your coaches, your mentors, right? That whole matching engine that's at your fingertips. So
it's a third party. It's a third party, which is, it's a third party, which I think is so important.
And make it super simple. Sorry.
Oh, me too, because I'm so excited over your business model. And I'm so excited about how you're able to work with these enterprises that will provide this service for the women in-house. And also, it's a third party. Anybody who tries to do HR in-house effectively for women, I just don't believe that'll work. And I think too, though, that you are also providing the caliber of women who not only can help grow women professionally and personally, but also are there to be hired, right? To be brought in to speak and talk to groups of women within an organization or an association that focuses on a certain channel, whether it's finance or tech or human resources, et cetera. And I really love your comment where you said, how do we make a smart investment in human capital? And that is speaking the language of your customer, Shubhi.
Yeah.
And I love
You
that.
don't want thousands of dollars that you need to spend every year on her, right? Because companies can't afford to do that across the board, right? But could you spend a couple $100 a year, and that provides and gives you all these rich benefits. And at the same time, when you have a digital platform, you know, I'm not going to be on this planet forever and ever and ever, but the platform should live on. And it's not Shubhi's story. It's a collective story of lots of Shubhis and lots of Andes and lots of other women in the world who deeply care to move this agenda forward. So, what has happened now on the platform is we have some great coaches, some great experts, really women entrepreneurs, that because we are a platform and we can go to market to these enterprises, we're able to say, well, here's what UpLevel does. But I don't want to get in the business, for example, menopause. Menopause at work is now, or finally is being recognized as an issue, right? But UpLevel doesn't want to be the expert on that. That is not our thing. But are there women doing it really well, great programs? Well, when we go to market, how can we also highlight and showcase other women who are doing great work? So it's not only about, oh, let's do UpLevel, but if we need a specialized program, as in menopause, let's get you Marianne, who will help you. You work together. This way, it's truly an ecosystem of women who deeply care about this agenda can come to the enterprises.
Yeah,
right?
you're
So
curating.
Really friction. So you're not having to work with multiple parties and multiple contracts and all of that. So again, I put myself in the other shoes when I was on the other side and go, okay, how can we make this so easy, such a no-brainer? But we're working on it. We're not there yet.
Having frictionless be less friction being one of your guiding stars. I think that's so important. And as you said, you can curate the specialist, whether it's parents or mom who's dealing with her neurodiverse child, and where does she get the care depending on where they are in the spectrum, to, hey, I'm in perimenopause. How am I going to get through the day without either killing myself or killing someone else? So it's to all the other issues women can face that are unique to being a woman in a professional environment. So you're just you're hitting it out of the ballpark. I just love it on every level for UpLevel. Cindy, yes, I know that you and Shubhi will connect. So I'll be sure to reach out to each other and connect on LinkedIn. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Cindy.
And then Cindy also says women only have access to 2% of available funding, with valuations that are 178% lower than male founders. So valuation methods are broken at the early stages. Wow. And here's another stat, because I know you love data, Shubhi. Female founders bootstrap for a minimum of 3 years before their first equity round, series seed. The average startup will bootstrap for 2 years. Cindy, rock on, sister.
Yes, Cindy, I so agree with you. And what Cindy says in there, which is the differential between the men and the women, is that perception of risk reward. So for whatever reason, there's some, is it that, oh, she's a woman, so the risk parameter goes up? Is it that, oh, she's an older woman of color? Is it, she's too young? She doesn't, whatever it might be, right? That the risk premium attached to women founders is much higher, relatively speaking, than men. I mean, that's what the data says to me. When I look at that, I'm like, oh, so they're attaching a much higher risk premium to me. But why?
Exactly. Why are you attaching a higher risk premium to my deal? Everybody just write that down, because that's what you want to be saying on every post, on every time anybody says anything, whether it's on LinkedIn, Twitter, or you're at a pitch event. Excuse me, investors, I just want to understand, why are you putting a higher risk premium on my deal than on his deal? Because
or just explain to me how you're thinking about that risk premium.
Yeah.
Right. Then that goes to Cindy's point. That's what depresses the valuation.
Yes.
Or the higher discount rate, or whatever they're applying. The mechanics of it is the mechanics, but there is a perception or a bias that's kicking in.
That's right. That's right. And there's a lot of reasons why that's going to take time to dissolve, but we'll get there, and we know we will. So what does UpLevel look like in just a couple of years? Because you're really going at the speed of light, in my opinion. Where do you think you'd like to see it in a couple of years?
So I think we're from a tech perspective, we feel pretty good about where we are in training our AI, because now we're talking about this ethical AI, etc. And I know this conversation has been happening for a while, actually, but it just the drumbeat's gotten louder.
Yeah.
To me, I feel that's where the world is going to go for sure, and that's what was in my journals 5 years ago when I was starting to journal about how I imagined AI and machine learning being used for women. And now we fast forward 5 years, and I'm so glad to see that we shouldn't be just taking people's data and selling it to advertisers or doing things that just doesn't feel right. But how can we take this rich data and allow women to flourish and allow organizations to be part of that flourishing story, right? So they can support that. So in few years, what I would really like to see is how we are using aggregated, anonymized, data insights, not just to help the organization to support the women, but also, to change policies or to really inform product development or, changing programs, right? How could we use these powerful sets of data to really make societal changes? Now, does it happen in 2 years? I don't think so, because it'll, but will we be on that journey? I sure hope so.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the power of this platform, is that you are combining the rich landscape of not only, helping these women flourish. I love that word, but also giving the organization hard pathways to helping, real, clear pathways to show that they are there to help their female leaders flourish and get the support they need, no matter who they are.
That's
and
right.
No matter what is prompting them to aspire along the way. Cindy, I'm just going to bring this up again. The data proves that female founders are at lower risk, hitting exit sooner, walking into raising funds with solid traction, and doing more with smaller raises. So why is there a higher risk premium and all of that? I just love that question, something fierce. So as you have been exploring this world of founderhood, like parenthood, only it's founderhood, how have you managed those moments of feeling doubt about yourself, feeling inadequate, wondering why bother? What was I thinking? These are all normal thoughts, folks who tune into the show. Okay, you first-time founders or on the fence founders, this is normal. So Shubhi, how have you managed your mindset during the tough days with UpLevel?
I think honestly, just based on who I am and my personality, if I had to literally just do 24/7 founder work, I don't know if I would be as efficient and effective at it, because I think I do need sort of that mental break and look at something else. And usually what happens is, if I am in a meeting with if you look at my portfolio, for most part, there's a common denominator to what I really care about doing in this chapter of my life. So, for example, open lending is all about democratizing lending to our near prime borrowers in the United States, and working with the credit unions and the regional banks, right? And it's something very near and dear. So I have a skill set in that space, but at the same time, I get to look at that problem through a different lens. And oftentimes, when I'm in those meetings, or when once a quarter when we have our board meetings and there might be something happening intra-quarter, it will trigger something that will help me on UpLevel, but it gives me a break from UpLevel and engages my brain in a different direction. And I think it's like going to the gym. If you just ask me to go to the treadmill every day, me personally, I couldn't do it. I like to have a mix of different
That's
things.
right. And I love that because that's something that it's enriching you in a different way, a different part of you being enriched
Right.
and fulfilled, gets you out of your head always thinking about your business.
Right.
But also there's that wonderful reward for having contributed your talent, your brain pan, et cetera, to something that's near and dear to your heart. And then boom, the side benefit is like, woo, talking about this over here reminded me that I could do this here with
That's right.
UpLevel.
That's right.
I
That's right.
love that.
Yeah.
And now that you've been an entrepreneur for about 5 years, Shubhi, yay. How has this journey served you both professionally and personally?
Like I said, I think I wake up every day with a purpose, but at the same time, every day I go, I have so much to learn. So much to learn.
And I think that's wonderful for you, right, guy? Because you like
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like I said, UpLevel is my best teacher.
Yes.
And for that, I honor her and I respect her. And it's a, I feel like I work for her, I serve her. And her job is to serve women, right? So that's sort of the relationship in my brain.
Yeah, no, I think I see it just sort of flowing in like divinely, coming in through you and out to the women through UpLevel. And also, what you're clearly saying too is that this is a level of professional development that you could not have gotten anywhere else. Your other organizations, you were maxed out in what you could do in those organizations. And the only way for you to flourish and blossom deeper and more fully was through UpLevel.
Yeah. I mean, there are things I didn't know, I had no exposure to, would have never gotten that exposure to. And it's fascinating what I'm learning and leveraging my skill set in a different way.
Yeah.
It's the same skill set. Shubhi hasn't changed, so right? I mean, it's whatever skills I have. And of course, the skills are growing and changing, but now it's a different application.
That's right. And folks, you have lived experience. So no matter what, you are bringing a lot to the table, founders, when you launch your business. You're just having to learn how to be it in a different way as a founder. And the learning happens every day. And when you embrace it, then that makes it a little easier. Oh my gosh, Shubhi, you have taught us so much today. How may the folks listening and tuning in, how make this community add wind to your sales at UpLevel?
Spread the word. Go to the App Store, go to the Play Store, download it, play with it, send us feedback. That's what I think would be.
Oh, that's so
very,
great.
very helpful. And I do want to thank you, Andy, because I know we need to close out here. Is that I have not done a podcast like this for 5 years. I've chosen not to. I not because I just didn't think I would be good at it, and I still don't know whether I'm good at it or not.
You were terrific. Come on.
I just needed the courage to do it. And
I'm
I
so
think that
happy.
came from UpLevel because it felt like it was a positive thing for women and for UpLevel and
well, and this is also part of your role as founder. We all
and me growing.
Yeah, you have to. Founders have to step into their media preparedness,
Yeah.
which is why the Startup Life Live Show is a wonderful way to practice.
That's right.
Being interviewed.
Well, thank you for giving me that opportunity. I really appreciate it, and thank you to all of you.
Oh, I'm so delighted that you were able to join us. And just let's say a quick hi to Jamil from India. Oh my gosh, so happy
Jamil.
That you tuned in, and so happy that you were here to listen to the wonderful founder journey of this remarkable woman, the one and only Shubhi Rao from UpLevel, who had the courage to found a business that's a big, deep, and hairy, audacious idea, in my humble opinion. Thank you for joining us today, Shubhi. I'm going to pop you into the green room and wrap up the show. Hang in there, okay? I'll be right with you. And so, folks, how about this? We talked a lot about the business map of what Shubhi and her team have gone through. And it's so important that we dive into not only Shubhi's founder journey stories, but the parts and pieces, so that we can all learn along the way how to have more success with our own business, because sometimes our problem solving skills can get a little stuck. And then when we hear how someone else has figured it out, we go, oh, I can easily translate that into my business and make it work. So again, thank you all for tuning in. So happy. And Cindy Guion is sharing her most recent podcast in the link. So maybe I can grab it and share it online in the show notes. Cindy, so grateful for all the great information you shared. And hey, Ruth, so happy to see you here in the comment threads as well. So folks, and then Angela, so happy to see you as well. Shubhi was talking about having more construction folks on her platform, UpLevel. So be sure to reach out to Shubhi because you've got the greatest background for that. All right, folks. The show will be coming back on April 14th. I'm taking a few show dates off to sort of get caught up in my life. So there's no show on the 7th or the 11th, but I'll be back here with a phenomenal guest on the 14th. Until then, you know what I'm always loving to say to all of you. Remember that you're braver than you believe and stronger than you feel sometimes, right? And as we say here in Boston, you are wicked smarter than you think. That's right. You have what it takes to be a founder. I'm so excited for you. Be sure to stop by and say hi wherever you're glowing out there. I'd love to cheer you on and learn more about what you're doing in the world. So until next time, I'm wishing you a delicious day. Mwahs to all. Cheers.